Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to Put Me On, where it's everything college and corporate. And I have with me today a LinkedIn superstar in her own right. I have with me today Taylor Falls. Taylor, I will pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yes, so hi everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. Super excited to be here today and put y'all on. So my name is Taylor Falls. I am originally from Birmingham, Alabama, but I am calling in today from Northern Virginia. I am currently a DEI program specialist in the tech industry, and I also, in my free time, I don't like to use the term influencer, but I am a LinkedIn creator who consistently post about anything related to corporate America, internships, early career. I like to call myself the big sister for anything and everything professional development related. And I am super excited to be here today to talk about my journey, talk about DEI, talk about early career, just all of the things.
Absolutely. It's very interesting that you say you don't want to use the term influencer, but you are definitely influencing. On LinkedIn, and I'm just curious how you even got into, being the big sister for people on LinkedIn. Can you share like some of like your story and your background before you even got to this point?
For sure. So to start this story, I will have to go back. Oof, what this is a lot of years now. I feel like I'm aging. I'm like, oh my goodness. But in high school, my friend and I started a empowerment group for Black women on our campus called Awaken. This was something that was the first of its kind. I am from Birmingham, which is it's pretty diverse, but depending on where you are, it can be more predominantly white. And also just considering the historical context of Alabama, specifically of Birmingham, there was basically a big gap between some of the things that we were getting as students of color compared to some of the white students. And there also was just an overall lack of education around, Black culture in the modern sense. We always were talking
Hmm.
about civil rights and things of that sorts, but there was like the lack of education. So with that, we were providing our members with professional development, but we were also educating others in the community about modern Black culture. From there, I went on to college at the University of Alabama, and I became the professional development chair of my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And, when I was the professional development chair, I was literally doing what I currently do on LinkedIn, but just in like a
Hmm.
more niche setting. So I was finding internships for my sorority sisters. I was sending them like long lists of internships. I was hosting professional development panels with our career center. I was literally going through and sending professional development tips like every week. And when I graduated, I really missed being able to do that because I was able to positively impact so many of my line sisters. And I was like, wow, how can I continue to do this in a way that will hopefully support the masses? Because one thing that I also realized with being in college is even though we had a career center and we had all of these resources, again, there was still that gap between what the students of color were getting and what the other students or the white students were getting. And so my thing was all about filling that gap. So once I graduated, I was like, how can I continue to do this? And that's when I was like, wait, you should just post on LinkedIn. Like you already did a LinkedIn workshop. Your LinkedIn is
Hmm.
already up to date. People are always asking you about how to be more active on LinkedIn. Why don't you just take your experience there? And so that's what I ended up doing. And I ended up posting one day in September or something of 2023. And I've been posting mostly consistently since then.
That is such a journey. Like your ability to realize there's a gap here, and it's not like, okay, there's a gap here, and like, what do we do? Like, you didn't just cross your hands. You're like, okay, let's go fill that gap. I think that is super exciting. And since you've been doing that, beyond LinkedIn, just taking from your story. you're also filling that gap in the corporate space.
Mhm.
Um, how is that going? For those who are not familiar, you're in the DEI, you know, sector.
Mhm.
How is that going? How has that been, you know, advocating and coming up with like DEI initiatives? Can you describe that journey?
It's been great. So I started doing DEI in 2021 after George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. And that was when everyone was for DEI, or so they said. So the beginning of my journey, I was having a great time. I mean, I was interning at all of these tech or ed tech companies. I was doing not only like corporate DEI with some of our employee networks or ERGs and hosting events, but I was dealing with representation data. I was going to career fairs specifically for diverse students. I was really able to get a really like deep understanding of what DEI looked like in corporate. And currently doing it full time, I will say that just really fuels my soul and feeds my passion. In 2025, we are experiencing things that I have not experienced in regard to just the amount of backlash for this type of work. But I mean, I'm one of them people that, if somebody wants to say that I shouldn't be doing this, I'm just going to continue to do it even harder. So I mean, because the thing is, when we think about systemic inequity, these are things that have been going on for centuries before you and I even walked this earth. And, when people say that we are doing something that is discriminatory, I feel like we're just leveling the playing field. I mean, if you think about it, in 1965, my father couldn't even have thought to have worked in corporate America. There was no space for him. Hence why my family started their own business, because there was literally no type of corporate business that would allow them to work unless they were like a janitor or
Mhm.
doing something that was not necessarily, like white collar. Yeah, I am all for DEI. I will always be for DEI. I really think again that if we are trying to level the playing field and bring true equity and inclusivity to this world, that this is work that has to continue being done, because again, we are trying to change centuries of inequity and it's not going to happen overnight.
Absolutely. Like just while you were speaking, it just reminds me of like, what is happening right now in the world where people are like, no, DEI's this, DEI's that, but it's like you said, centuries of like inequity. Like we're just filling that gap. We are just filling that gap.
Just feeling
Uh,
good.
and I'm curious. I'm sure like your journey hasn't been all rosy, especially with the DEI space. Could you share some of the challenges that you have encountered and how you've dealt with them?
I would say when it comes to challenges, I think the the biggest one for me is just being resilient. It
Mm.
is challenging to continue to be resilient when you're facing just backlash from the external environment. I would just say that, being able to make a case for this, not only in it's like it's a good thing to do, but making the business case for it is not something that has been difficult, but it's been difficult for the masses to understand the business case. Because I think it's easy to make this is a good thing to do case, and it's easy to make the business case, especially when you have the data. I think it is just the most difficult thing. Let me put it like this: the most difficult thing has been to make people understand the point of view from people who have to deal with inequity every day. If you don't have to deal with inequity every day, it can be difficult for someone to like put themselves in your shoes to understand where you're coming from. So I think that's been the most difficult thing for me. Like someone who has not walked in my shoes as a black woman, it is often difficult for them to understand why I am so passionate about this work. And it is not up to me to change someone's perspective or change someone's point of view. It is up to me, however, to educate people as much as I can. And that's why I most of the time speak from my own personal experience, because you cannot discount the experience that I've said that I've had coming from Birmingham, Alabama, where I've been called racial slurs and things of the sort. That is an experience that just cannot be negated. So I would say that definitely getting people to understand why this work is so important when they don't live it.
Yeah. Okay, but yes, this is, I'm sure, like every point in this conversation will probably leave me speechless because while you were just speaking about like people not, discounting your personal experience, unfortunately, like in the world we are today, like we still find people who are like, and I'm like,
I
but
mean,
nothing.
exactly? What can we? There's no but to someone discriminating against me because of the color of my skin like that. We can't. Yeah, there's no but.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you share from your point of view. That's one thing that really attracted me to like your posts. Like the fact that, every post that I see from you, it's in like your tone. I'm like, I could hear you writing this.
Good.
I can hear you writing this. And it's so cool to see on LinkedIn. I think you were one of the first few people that I saw who were very open with like their experiences, like beyond like just saying, I want to like help you, I want to share that I went for this program. Like you didn't just say I went to this program, you're like, I went to this program, but here's what I struggled with to get
Mm.
there. Like here's how, I dealt with my anxiety. And you are real.
Yes,
And
I believe in
I'm
authenticity.
just I'm just, I'm not wondering, but I'm wondering, and for whoever's listening, how you have, continued to maintain this authentic tone in LinkedIn that, is supposed to be like a professional space.
Mm.
How do you do that?
So I always tell people like your professional and personal experience may not be the same, but there is a point where they cross over. And
Mm,
so my whole thing about being authentic is if I am, especially me as a DEI practitioner, I cannot tell people, bring your full self to work every day. Like you should, feel a sense of belonging, be authentic, I can't say all these things and then not do that myself. I cannot, it's
mhm,
just hypocritical. And I don't want to be hypocritical. So when it comes to me, posting on LinkedIn, since my audience is more early career Gen Z, I want them to understand that like LinkedIn is not a place to be afraid of. I often, even some of my friends now, they tell me all the time, they're like, I would rather post on any other platform than LinkedIn because they are so afraid of
mm,
how people will perceive them, professionally. And my whole thing is my anxiety is going to impact me whether I'm at home or at work. I can unfortunately cannot control when I may be I mean I can a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. I can't really
yeah.
always
Hmm.
control when I may be anxious. So through me sharing my story and my struggle, my whole thing is about making other people feel comfortable to do the same. Because it is so often that somebody will go to work and they will hide half, if not all, of their themselves, like their true self. And when if I
Hmm.
spend, 8 hours at work 5 days a week, that is 40 hours where I am acting like someone who I am not. And I don't know about the audience or, who's listening, but that's a long time to be faking it until you make it. So I just believe in being authentic because I want to encourage others to do the same. And I also want other people to see themselves reflected in my story. LinkedIn is one of those places where people often are talking about achievement after achievement. And it is wonderful to have achievements, but I think we have to be honest in saying, like, for every high point, there's also equally the same amount of low points. And it does me no justice to only speak about the good things without talking about the struggles that I've endured as well.
Absolutely. And you know what, I will fast forward just because we're at this point in the conversation. For somebody who's like, I want to show up as my authentic self, but I just don't know how. Like,
Mm.
I I type that post and then I delete. I don't post it. How, like, what advice would you give to that type of person?
I love this question because I had this conversation with someone else last month who she was really afraid of sharing her like real true story on LinkedIn. And she had done the same thing, written it up, deleted it, written it up, deleted it.
Hmm.
And I was like, girl, if you don't just press post. And she actually posted it and it went like low key viral. Like people
Oh,
were
wow.
really in the comments, like saying, thank you for posting this. Like, this is a wonderful post. I would have never known such thing about you. So, when I talk to people and they tell me they're afraid to post, my thing is, what is the worst thing that can happen? Like maybe a couple of people only like it. but you still put yourself out there. And also, I think when it comes to, sharing your story, you have to do it when you are ready. I tell people all the time, like, and
Mm.
it may take time. It may take time for you to feel comfortable, like talking about how you got to the place that you got to, or talking about your experience. But at the end of the day, there is no benefit for you to just keep it all inside and not talk about it, or to not post it. I mean, I think that people just have like this anxiety and this fear of sometimes of being perceived, on social media, specifically on LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, your story is your story. And you can either share it and allow it to positively impact other people, or you can keep it inside. I would say if someone is, fearful about posting on LinkedIn, I would say write the post, post it, and then if you got to delete the app, close the app, whatever, come back a few days later, do so. The first post is always going to be the hardest, but you never know. You may truly help someone else by sharing your own story. So I just always say, be like Nike, just do it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. That's really good advice because if sometimes you just have to close it, close the app, don't go
So
back after you made the post. Just
exactly.
it's out there.
It's out
It's
there and
out
it's
there.
okay. And it is a-okay. As long as you're not posting like anything that's like outlandish or wild. I always try to make sure that I differentiate,
Hmm.
a, a substantive post versus, a little wild one. But if it's something that's of substance and you want to share your story, post it and run if you got to.
That is so good. Post it and run. And I'm sure you have conversations with so many students ever since you started sharing. What are some struggles that you've seen, that you experience, that you still see other students? And just because of your background in DEI, I will focus on students from like underrepresented communities still experience. And can you speak to that, to encourage somebody who might be listening right now who's like, in that group?
The main thing that I see other students struggling with, that I struggle with myself, is this idea of imposter syndrome. I'm still working through mine. I think I've gotten a little bit better now. But this idea that I am not meant to be here. And again, that is something that is so difficult to get over when you walk into a space and you don't see anyone who looks like you, and you come from a space when no one else has, been able to get this far. And again, this is why I speak so highly of DEI, because it is so important to make sure that when students are walking into a new company or a corporation, that they see themselves represented. Because if not, it's so easy to get in your head to be like, why am I even here? Like, I don't belong here. I don't fit in here. And that's going to ultimately impact, the productivity and the output of the work that you are doing. And I often hear so many students, they'll tell me like, I don't think I should apply because I'm not good enough or just. My whole thing is, you have the same certifications and the same knowledge and the same skill sets as everyone else. Why not you? Uh, and I really had to, ask myself some of the same questions, because there were often many times, and there's still many times, where I get opportunities and I'm like, am I meant to have this? Is this for me? And I had to really, sit with myself and do that self work to realize that I am meant to be here. Like, I have the skills, I have the knowledge. I am not a diversity hire or whatever people are trying to say. I did the work to get where I need to be, and I belong here. So to any student that is, doubting themselves and doubting their abilities, if you have those skill sets, you belong in that space, and it is, up to you to confirm to yourself that you belong here, and to do the work to show other people that you belong there too, because you are not an imposter at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. You're also dealing with it.
Oh
It's
yes.
great to be open, and I still deal with it. So like people feel like maybe once you rise, like maybe when I do this, accomplish XYZ, it gets easier. I've spoken to a number of people at the top who still feel imposter syndrome. Like
Mhm.
it's real, no matter how high you get, except you do the work to deal with it, it's just going to be there. So you just have to put in that work. And just speaking of opportunities that you've had, can you share just an opportunity that you have gotten, like, through LinkedIn, just to encourage somebody who's like, "Mm, I'm still iffy about it." Can you share an opportunity that you've gotten through LinkedIn? Kind of like LinkedIn got me this job. um,
Yes. So I'll give you all two examples. So number one, I've gotten nearly, I would say 70%, if not higher, probably 80%.
mhm,
80% of my internships through LinkedIn. Um, Literally through like going on LinkedIn, finding the internships, applying, like making sure my resume and my profile and all my stuff is updated. A lot of the internships that I've gotten were through LinkedIn. I remember my final year in school, it was when I really started like really being on LinkedIn a lot.
mhm.
Um, a recruiter actually reached out to me for a role at my university to be like a campus ambassador for a well-known tech company. Literally reached out to me via LinkedIn. Like I didn't have to do anything. I really like literally they were like, "We want you for this role. Here's the application, but you got it." I was like, "Huh?
Oh, wow.
How you find me?" But that is through LinkedIn. Additionally, more recently, since I've been posting consistently on LinkedIn, I've actually been able to get some brand deals with some startups, like through just posting. Like they realized my post, they want to work with me, and I've been able to, have some extra income on the side because I posted so much on LinkedIn that people are like, "Can you help promote my startup or my brand?"
Absolutely.
So there are plenty of ways to get opportunities through LinkedIn, but I would say it always starts with having your profile up to date and also being at least somewhat active on the platform.
And I'm sure like your intention starting out wasn't even to like get brand deals. It
Oh
was
no,
like, I
never. I
want
mean,
to help.
I tell people all the time, like my intention even now, if a like a startup or a big company wants to, give me money to talk about something, that is fine. But my
Mhm.
sole and most biggest intention about posting on LinkedIn is to help students. I tell people all the time, I will never ask a student for any type of funds or anything. My whole thing is I am here to help those students that need the help.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Because a lot of people are, I don't know if I should dive into this space, but a lot, we will just leave it at that. Just at this point, we'll go into rapid fire mode. I will ask you
I'm ready.
questions.
Ooh, okay.
So these would be like, let's show people Taylor that they might not have met on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And then of course we'll tie it back to your work, DEI, and LinkedIn, and then we'll, close out from there. But let's see, let's see. So first question, rapid fire mode is dogs or cat?
Dogs. 100%. 100%. My dog is over there. She is sleeping. I don't think she's going to make her appearance, but I am not a cat person. Dogs.
Have you always been a dog person or?
For sure. Something about cats, they seem to like sneaky and sly for me. Like I just can't trust a cat. So dog, I've always had dogs, 100% dog.
Okay, okay, love it. Oh, not the sneaky.
Maybe they be a little, I've been like, I cannot trust you. You might attack me in my sleep. I'm like, mm-mm. So yeah, dogs only.
Yeah, I've seen a video of a cat that like put like its paw on the owner's nose, like while the owner was sleeping. And I'm
See,
like,
now my dog will like walk on me while I'm asleep. She will do
hmm
that. But at least she's not trying to like scratch me or anything.
hmm
No.
absolutely,
No.
absolutely. What is one city that you would like to visit if you could visit all expense paid, didn't have to worry about anything? What is
Ooh.
one city you would like to visit?
Mm. Either Santorini or Mykonos in Greece.
Those are both good places,
Mm-hmm.
also on the list for me.
Go abroad.
Uh, Speaking of all expense paid, let's speak things into existence. If you could partner with any brand this year, 2025, what would that brand be?
Ooh, this is a hard one. Ooh, yikes. Oh my gosh. What would I say? Oh my goodness. Probably like Chegg or something.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Chegg, listen,
Chegg.
listen.
Yeah, tap in with me. Tap in with me.
Absolutely, but why?
I would say when it comes to like professional development and my brand, so when I think of again brand I'm thinking from the
Mhm.
sole space of LinkedIn. I used a mess out of Chegg in college. Now I will say like y'all, I ain't trying to I wasn't cheating none, but I I did love a Chegg, especially in math.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, like when it was a weekend and the tutoring center wasn't open, or like when it was late, me and Chegg, friends. I would definitely say Chegg, like them, because just because the impact they had on my college life. Thank y'all.
Okay, so that is so amazing. That is so amazing. Yes, check like here, right now. So moving on. We talked about your LinkedIn high. Can you share a LinkedIn low? Because I know like people think like it's just a smooth journey, but like it's all about, like you said, being resilient. Doesn't matter where it's high or low, keep showing up. Can you share a low to show someone who's listening that, even when it gets low, you just have to keep showing up?
Yes. A while ago now, probably like a year ago now, I made a post about like the ATS system. This is when I tell people, this is why I say speak from your experience. Don't be trying to, you think you know something and you kind of know it, but you don't know it completely and you trying to post about it. No, no, no. This experience is why now I only speak from my own experience. I thought I knew about the ATS. Turns out I did not. And I made a post that was like, it wasn't completely false, but there were parts of it that some people deemed questionable. And some of these people were in my comments, like commenting, and I was like, ooh, maybe I should shut up. And I learned a lot from that post. I learned the difference between what I thought an ATS was and how it
Mhm.
actually works. And that was a real low point for me because I was like, dog, y'all are like ratioing me in the comments, like y'all kind of eating me up. Um, and I was like, ah. And so I learned from that. I learned from that. And now I only talk about things that I completely know I know about. Um, so yeah, that was my low. Yeah, that them people was low key eating me up in the comments. And I was like, ooh, I feel a little sad about this. So yes,
I,
only talk about things that you know
mhm.
from your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you like looked at it from a positive, perspective. Because that could have been a minute to be like, I am not wanted on this platform. Goodbye.
Oh no,
Um,
I just learned from I was
but-
just like, let me learn to only talk about me and what I know.
so that makes me want to ask a question though. How do you avoid that pitfall where you're like, I'm not gonna speak about this thing except I have like, of course, like, you don't want to spread false information.
Mm,
But there's this like idea like I have to be an expert to speak on a certain thing. So how do you make sure, because that's a fine line, you know?
yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
So, yes, it is a very fine line. And that's why I say now I only post about things that I have personally experienced or personally done or a skill set that I really know I have. Because at the end of the day, no one can negate your personal experience. And that goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning. Like, if I have done something personally and it has worked for me, then that is
Hmm.
my own personal experience. And y'all cannot negate that. Now, will that work for everybody else? I cannot say so, but I'm going to share my own perspective based off of what I've done and how it's either worked or not worked. So that's what you don't have to be an expert in everything. I am by no means a DEI expert because DEI changes, as we know, consistently. People are ever evolving and we are ever diversifying. So I cannot say I'm even an expert in that field because things are changing, but I can speak from my personal experience, what I do at work, and the experiences that I've had in my personal life. So I would just always say you don't have to be like a subject matter expert, but you
Hmm.
can speak about things from your own experience.
That is so good. That is so good. Speak from your experience. Don't generalize it. Just say
Yeah,
like, this worked for me. Try it if you will.
right,
Um,
right.
so good. That is so good. So, I'm sure you have had different kinds of experiences through college, through corporate. If you could talk to a college student and then to a corporate student, could
Mm.
you give them each one piece of advice to the college student and to the corporate student. So just imagine like you're talking to Taylor pre-college and Taylor pre-corporate.
To the college student, I would tell them to be careful who you surround yourself with. Um, it is college is one of those places where you are finding yourself. And it is so easy to get lost in the crowd when you are trying to like keep up with the Joneses. And that's something that I must admit that I did like in my early college days, like freshman going into sophomore year. I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I was so worried about what everyone else was doing.
Mm,
Um, and I kind of like had to reset sophomore year to set myself up for success. And so I always say, like, it is great to make new friends and have fun and do all those things you should. Life is all about balance. But really, be cognizant to make sure that you are around people who are equally yoked and just don't fall in with the wrong crowd. Because I feel like once you kind of get in with like trying to do what everyone else is doing, it's hard to figure out who you are and what you want. So that's the advice I would give to the college student. So the corporate student or the corporate professional, the young
hmm
early career person,
Yeah.
I would say lift as you climb. Oh my gosh, lift as you climb. There are so many people who, get to these places and then they just like, "Oh, I'm here, y'all." Like, and they don't try to help other people get there. I always say there is no benefit to me being in big tech and me having this job if I'm also not sharing my experiences and trying to help other people. Especially again as a underrepresented group or as a black person or whatever you want to call it. Um
hmm
like there are plenty of other people who admire the spot that I'm in who are interested in trying to get into said space, and what good would it be for me to be in this space and be like, "Oh, y'all, I have this great job," and then not helping everyone else? So I would say to my students who have been successful in getting a job, especially in this difficult market,
hmm
lift as you climb. There is truly no better feeling than being able to help someone else. So always, always, always extend that ladder back down.
And that's what you're doing with Tips with Taylor. Oh
Yes.
my goodness. Oh my goodness. Can you speak to that for like a second?
Mhm.
Tips with Taylor.
Tips will
Um,
take.
it's how you're helping other people. I know I said that was the last question, but permit me. You're helping people through this, but can you speak to how that journey has been? And for someone who's probably like, well, this is not me, can you offer them some advice, like of things that they could try maybe?
Yes. So first, let me tell you all, Tips with Taylor is literally where I go on and yap about anything related to corporate America, and just professional development. So I do have lives every month where I bring on someone just like we're doing here. And they talk about their experience. I ask them questions. I actually allow students in the comments to also ask them questions. Tips with Taylor is really just like my personal brand. So it encompasses my live, it encompasses my LinkedIn. I try to do stuff on TikTok, y'all, but TikTok is just not my jam. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. If it continues to be around, after
Hmm
90 days, but we'll see.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, for those people who are like, this is not me, I would say at the end of the day, everyone needs professional development. Whether you are a student of color, whether you've been in corporate America for 50 years, whether you're just getting started, there is always so much to learn. And I think that's one of the things that I try to also do through my platform a little bit is even if someone is technically not my target audience, that they're still able to take away something from my posts. So even if you are not technically my target audience, I always say, learning does not stop. Knowledge is forever. You're supposed to continue learning in order to grow. So professional development is for any and everyone.
Definitely. That is such a good note. That is such a good note to end on. Taylor, thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you for all that you're doing on LinkedIn. She truly, truly is the big sis on LinkedIn. I will be putting your socials on. But if there's any specific page you would like to share that people could find you on, or someone who wants to maybe ask you another question beyond what we've covered here, what would that be?
Yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Taylor Falls. I also have TikTok. It is Tips with Taylor F. Additionally, I do have a podcast where I talk about corporate culture, careers, and community from the perspective of a Gen Z with my co-host who is a millennial. So we have our little differences between our generations. But that is at Care to Elaborate on all platforms. That's YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all of the things.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Totally skipped my mind, but yes,
Okay.
I will be displaying those platforms on here. So please go follow Taylor. She shares a lot of good content, like a lot. So take advantage of it. And thank you all for joining us today. Bye all.
Bye. Thank you for having me.